Welcome to a new segment of Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. During this interview, we had the honor of interviewing writer and musician Josh Malerman. He is a force as an author of a critically acclaimed horror novel called Bird Box, which is going to very soon become a major motion picture. He is also the lead singer and guitarist for the very crazy, talented, and underrated band, the High Strung. It's an American rock band that has been forging tasty music to the public since 2000, and you can hear their track, The Luck You Got, as the title song in Showtime series Shameless. During our interview, he covered a long list of topics. He's a great cat, and he has a lot to give to the world creatively. It's refreshing. Please enjoy it. First of all, thank you very much for spending a little time talking with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for being here, man. You kidding?
Cool, man. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of start here at the kind of the alpha of your life and just find out, where were you born and raised?
Well, it was a suburb of Detroit called West Bloomfield. And, went to West Bloomfield High School, then went to Michigan State University, then moved to New York City with my rock band. Lived out there for 4 years, then hit the road for like 6 years. Literally, we were on the road for about 6 years. And at some point settled back here in Ferndale again. So,
as a kid, what were some of your best memories?
It's fun, making up what me and my brothers used to call adventure games, where we would, this is funny, to me, this traces easily to a writer's life. But we would make up characters and situations and blah 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 and act them out, outside in the yard, rain, snow, sun, whatever. Me and my brothers, and we just call them adventure games. Hey, you want to go play an adventure game? And essentially all it was making up characters and acting them out for the day.
Very cool. So let me ask you this, and I don't want to get stuck on horror films, but what were some of the horror films that really stuck in your mind as, man, that was good, man. That stuck with me throughout all these years. Every Halloween, I can go back to that, and it scares me. What really stuck with you?
That list is so long. I have what's it called? A seminal moment with the movie Twilight Zone, the movie. You ever see that one?
Yeah, man, that was a great film.
Well, it came, I don't know what year it came out, 85, whatever, something about 10 years old. And I remember my uncle, he was like, hey, you gotta see this movie, blah, blah, blah. He put it in, it was a VHS tape, so maybe I was 12, who knows, whatever. But he put on the tape, and I just watched it alone at his house while my brothers were playing with my cousins. And it was like the first horror movie I had ever seen, and that was it. I was blown away.
Yeah.
I was scared, I was excited, ran and told my brothers about it. I told everyone at school, that kind of thing. I just immediately was sold. So my love of cinema as a genre is so rich and so varied. But it all definitely started with Twilight Zone, the movie, when my uncle played me that movie, yeah.
Well, the Twilight Zone was way ahead of its time. Rod Serling was doing something that was mind-blowing,
Mind-blowing, yeah, I know.
And then to have this film come out, the great thing about the Twilight Zone is, when I was a kid, that guy on the airplane wing freaked me out, but now it's that Anthony kid that I'm older. It's like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing about vignette movies like that. It's like reading a good book after, a decade, or when you're an adult versus being a kid. And it's like, man, everything kind of changes a little bit, but it's still great,
I had a similar experience with The Exorcist, the book.
Yeah.
When, I read it, and, everything from the movie, stands out, right? All those landmark scenes. There's a scene in the book that didn't make it in the movie where Reagan is in the kitchen talking about Captain Howdy, right?
Yeah.
And her mom's like, Reagan, where's Captain Howdy now? And Reagan just points to, the entrance of the kitchen. She's like, oh, it's right there.
Yeah.
And I'm always that just really screwed me up.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
I'm like, oh, God, he's been just standing in the kitchen with Mom the whole time, And somehow that one didn't make it into the movie. But so, yeah, you're right. It's almost like the older you get, your fears change. Oh, my mom's on the airplane. That's a little goofy now. But the idea of a kid that can do anything he imagines, well, that's a little freaky.
Yeah, totally. But that's the beauty of storytelling. It stays with you forever, and it changes, but it changes in a good way. So, let me switch a little bit from film. And as a musician, what were your favorite bands growing up?
Well, that's kind of, I have a weird history with music, because I was kind of I don't want to say a square, but I was kind of a square for a long time. I was just stuff like that. And my mom was, who's a few years younger than him, was playing more like mid to late 60s, more like psychedelic stuff.
Right on.
So it was good stuff, but I didn't really think back then, like, hey, go forge your own path, go discover more music, that kind of thing. It took my friends, my bandmates, who I've been friends with since I was 11 years old, to really introduce me to stuff. I mean, I was like late in my teens when Derek, the drummer, was like, hey, you gotta get into the Ramones, you know?
Yeah.
You gotta get into this, that, and that. I just never, like, saw it out on my own. I was one of those people who was like, oh, it's on the radio, it's good. You know, I just didn't know better, you know?
Yeah.
But my best friends, my bandmates, like, opened my eyes infinitely. So, since, you know, I remember the first album I bought was a horror album. It was Nightmare on My Street. That was Will Smith.
Yeah.
And the only reason I got it was because it had a Nightmare on Elm Street-ish cover, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But then from there, the bandmates, you know, again, opened my eyes, and, you know, a different but equally full love affair was born from that, too.
Yeah, I think the beauty of friends is that they can really give you that gift of music in more ways than one, you know?
Yeah. And if you're like, if you're open to that versus, you know, oh, I know everything, I mean, what do you know more than me, Jared, right? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you're open to your friends' suggestions, I mean, chances are, you guys got similar tastes, chances are you're going to like that movie or that book, too, you know?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So when you were a kid and you sat back and thought, this is what I want to be when I grow up, what was it?
I'm not sure that I, like, recognized as a kid that you could be whatever you want to be, or that you could do whatever you wanted with your life. I think it was more like, oh, I'm going to school and I get really good grades, and I was captain of the track team, and you know, I don't know, Dad's an accountant too. Maybe I'll one day do something like that. Well, who knows, right? And then I had sort of what I call like a psychic break. That may sound like a nervous breakdown, but it wasn't. It was at age 19. I just something struck me all in one evening that resulted in like a panic attack, which was this absolute realization that, wait a minute, man, you really can do whatever you want to right now. At all times. Like, you really can do that. There's some things have repercussions, and other things have infinite rewards, and blah, blah, blah. They all hit me at once, and it was sort of overwhelming, very overwhelming.
Yeah.
I told my mom about it, and I really had a freaked out sort of like moment that resulted in, like, hey, you know what? Don't be afraid of this. Actually, now go do whatever you want with your life. And I had been writing my whole life in some capacity or another, just because it was fun and because it was, you know, it felt good, right?
Yeah.
But at age 19, when that happened, it was like, okay, you know that thing that is really fun and that you love to do? Why don't you get serious about that and actually do this?
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where it all like settled in.
Yeah, it sounds like the theme of that would be called The Birth of a Dream, you know? That's pretty cool. Do you remember the time where you kind of rounded that corner and fell in love with reading?
Yeah, I do, because my parents had bought me like Dad, I want to find this book, and I've looked on eBay before. It was some book about these weird cougar animals that eat like all these eat all the food in town. It was like a little scary. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but my parents brought home a book, and I opened it and read the entire thing to them. It was, you know, I don't know how long it was, but I read it to them, and they were both like, "Whoa, Josh, you just read a whole book. You can read, like, you know, you can read now, right?" And I remember that, and that just that little sliver of encouragement, like, you know, oh, but Mom and Dad were impressed or something, and I loved the book, and that, I mean, immediately led to a lifetime of reading. And there was a thing called the Pine Tree Book Awards.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that or know that, but it was a contest who could read the most books in the school districts, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember I came in third to like a Japanese girl. And I remember I went to like a big ceremony and everything, and my mom went with me, and I got like third place in the Pine Tree Book Awards. It was so exciting, you know? And that's like what, fifth grade? So it's been forever.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So why do you write? What is it about you that makes you feel complete as a person to write?
Well, you know, I used to say that I felt completely motivated by like guilt because I didn't write. I felt guilty.
Yeah.
I feel like that almost paints a picture of a very dark scenario. You know, a man writing like to satiate something versus to celebrate something.
Right.
And I think at some point I realized, you know what? Yes, you do feel guilty when you don't write, but you also feel really fucking good when you do write.
Yeah.
And so, I think what it is for me is that I'm not a realist in any way. I'm the kind of guy that when I watch a documentary, I'm like, well, this is great, but it's biased. And if I watch a movie that's on a real subject, like a struggling mom or something, I'm like, okay, but it's still fiction. Like, I'm always aware with art that no matter how realistic it's trying to be, it's still fiction.
Yeah.
So, but you know what I mean. So,
yeah.
With that in mind, I kind of walked the path of, well, if it's fiction, man, it's all fiction. Let's strap the imagination into a catapult and fire.
Yeah.
Let's just let it go. And so when I'm doing that, it just feels like the right thing to do to me, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, Mark Twain said when he looked back on his life, he didn't regret what he did. He regretted what he didn't do. So.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Without a doubt. So let's talk about music. That sounds like a very integral part of your existence. And when did making music become something to you that you were like, this is going to be something I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Well, I had been writing forever, right? So I had sort of this pile of really terrible poems. They were all trying to be really dark and deep, right?
Uh-huh.
And all of my friends were already playing instruments, right, and all that sort of thing. And again, back then I didn't think much of it. Oh, Jared plays drums. Okay, well I don't, right? So, but we had this one day where we were all in the basement, and another friend started singing all those poems over what my friends were playing, the music they were playing, and that was a huge moment,
right?
Because it was the first time I heard my God, man, Mark is singing your words over music, these could be songs.
Yeah.
And it showed, it's sort of the big, impenetrable wall of music. Suddenly there's a little door open at the bottom. I was like, wait a minute, you can go in here, you can write songs. And, I mean, it was so thrilling. And I think that would be that moment. I even remember when everyone was standing when that happened. I remember the color of the basement. I remember the blue drum set. You know what I mean?
Kick
It was
ass.
that kind of moment. So I actually kind of credit again my friends, but in this particular case, Mark just picking up those poems and reading them and singing them. And it just showed me that, hey man, anybody could write a song if they really want to. Let's go for it.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's a great story. I want to kind of weave in and have an intro here to your band, the High Strung. About 3 months, probably 2 months ago, my wife is an avid reader. She's read everything. And I usually get my books on the Kindle and, from different places. And usually the library is not the book that I read. So I go to the library and get a stack of books for her. And there's one laying on a coffee table. And I said, are you already done with that? And she said, no, you have to read this book. And I look down and it says Bird Box. And I pick it up and I'm like, man, and it pulls me in. And I go and I swallowed that book up. I didn't know who you were or your band was. I got involved with the High Strung. So I had an instant moment of getting totally into your creative vibe. And I love the High Strung. I love your book. So your music, you have to be one of the least known yet most talented bands that I've run into in at least the last decade. Very easily.
Wow, thank you. That is awesome. Thank you for all of that.
So give me a little bit of a backdrop of the band and how it started.
It's funny that you said what you just said. One time, the LA Times voted one of our albums the second most, overlooked album of the year, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is great, Derek, they gave Hit the Guess. They gave it the second most overlooked, and Derek goes, oh, good, maybe next year will be the second most looked album of the year.
Yeah.
So there is, a weird spot to be in with what you were just saying. What it all began with that day with Mark, for sure, playing songs, singing songs, and I realized I could start radio. And really what happened was, my younger brother's friend, Chad, was a bass player, and Derek, Mark, and I started to play together, and we needed a bass player, and we had moved to New York City, and we're like, oh, we're going to go to New York and write songs. I mean, we were 23 years old, what a moment,
Yeah.
And we're out there, and we're broke, but we're like, you go to your weird job in this big city that you don't know, and then you get on the subway, you go home and start working on songs, and I would call Chad constantly, hey man, you gotta quit college and just come out here and be in our band. You're like, what are you doing? What are you gonna finish school? Come on, join us, And he kept saying, no. And finally, one day, honest to God, doorbell rings, we answer the door, and Chad Stocker is there. And he's like, finished school, my friend was driving out to like Vermont for like a fish show or something, I don't even remember what it was. And then he's like, and I asked her to drop me off here, so I'm here now. We were like, whoa, wow, okay, hi, wow. So Chad just moved into our, like, boss with us, and we just had, what a year of just non-stop recording and writing songs. That led to a friend of ours getting us a gig in, like, Ohio.
Yeah.
And we're like, Ohio? What does that mean? What do you mean? We're going to go play a show in Ohio? We didn't even know what that really meant back then,
Yeah.
So we drive from New York to Ohio, play the show, and on the way back, we were all like, wow, that was awesome. That was amazing. We just drove, played in a small town, 30 people were there, they danced, we had fun, we all drank. What a night, And so we were kind of like, you know what? Let's go on the road. That idea just ballooned into 6 years of being out on the road, and the reason why was we would go for like 2 or 3 months at a time, and then it's like, why are we paying for apartments in New York City? Like, we're not even there anymore.
Yeah.
So we got rid of our apartments. Well, now you're just touring, you don't even have a place to live.
Yeah.
so literally, we were touring for, honestly, like 240 shows a year, that kind of thing.
Wow.
And just nonstop, going back from, like, all the way from Miami to Seattle, I mean, everywhere. And it never got old, because, like, you wouldn't be back in Seattle again for another, like, 3-4 months, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a sense that you had, like, relationships growing with people in all these different cities. It really started to feel like America was much smaller than I had always thought it was, because we circled it, 20 times.
Wow. That's cool, man.
So it was, in hindsight, it seems like a real linear story. Oh, you got your friends, they play music, they get you into it. You start playing, you get good in practice, you start playing out, and you tour. And that makes total sense. Like, while doing it was all like, there was no, like, real conscious decision, it felt like. It just felt like things just kept, like, going and momentum and ballooning. And, our shows, we would play for, like, 10 people and have, like, the time of our lives.
Yeah.
Like, all the time.
That's cool.
I always joke that, we played, like, 2,000 shows for about 2,000 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Yeah. I remember saying to Derek at the end of that road run, I was like, hey, whether we, sold 1 million records tomorrow or if we broke up tomorrow, like, I don't think we're ever going to be able to replace or beat this stretch that we've had. These, like, 6 years of, 6 years, that's high school and a half,
Yeah, man, that's a long time.
Just playing music with your buddies and and the fighting was minimal because we had already gone through that when we were in, like, 8th and 9th grade. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, we didn't really get, like, sick of each other. We all just had our eyes on the fact that, listen, playing your songs in Minneapolis is more fun than the day job you would have back home.
No shit.
So let's keep going. Let's go. We just never lost sight of that. We got a little bit older now. Now I'm 39 years old, and the idea, I remember waking up in someone's laundry room, opening my eyes and seeing the bottom of a laundry tub, Like, that idea sounds a little crazy to me today, but otherwise, naturally getting older, saying, yeah, never any real problems between us, and just like a legitimate love for like making albums.
That's cool, man. That's a great story. So, over 2000 to 2014, you have 15 albums, and today the Showtime series Shameless has your song profiled. Millions of people are hearing it. How does this feel for you and the band?
You know what? It kind of goes back to what we were saying before, which, by the way, I have zero regrets or animosity towards the idea that we're not quote unquote famous, like zero. Our music life has been magnificent, but the whole like Shameless thing, like I think that we really did think, at the time, like, oh my God, we got a theme song on Showtime. I'm like, this is that moment our band's going to be well known, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything's exactly the same. We have some money from the show, which is, thank God, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of like fans, whatever, it's exactly where it's always been. That said, when it happened, we had finished a practice, and Derek left. Derek's the drummer. He left for I don't remember why. And then I got a phone call from him. I think I was still at the practice space, and he was like, "Hey, I got really weird news for you. We got asked to do a theme song for a Showtime show." I was like, "Oh, come on!" And he's like, "Yeah, it says William H. Macy." And I was like, "Wait, what are you talking about? We're this tiny band from Michigan who, like I said, played 2,000 shows for 2,000 people." And it's like, really? Is this happening? We were like, almost nervous that like whatever this news was going to change if it didn't happen like right away.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Like if this show doesn't come out tomorrow, well, no, maybe it's gonna fall apart. Maybe we won't have the theme song. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there was this like huge like joy, anxiety, that kind of thing, and then it settled in, and now we're like, oh, this is awesome. We have a theme song on CD. Guys, this is great.
Yeah, that's great, man. Let me kind of throttle down to like the cellular level here and ask, what is a typical day like for you?
Okay, well I can, like today I'm working on book 2 for HarperCollins. The follow-up to Bird Box. It's already written. I'm rewriting it, and I'll work on that for I don't know how long, in just a few hours. Then that'll be hopefully followed by I put out like a Kindle single recently, and I would love to do another one like soon. So I need to like rewrite this one novella that I wrote, and then there's another like collection of novellas that I wrote that the smaller publishing house is interested in. So I got to reread that stuff. So tip of the day is either editing, rewriting, that kind of thing, or writing from scratch, which of course is my favorite thing to do. Somewhere in there, yes, I'll pick up the guitar and work on songs, and somewhere in there I'll talk to my friends about making movie ideas, all that stuff. But I will definitely say that I am 100% living the life of like the creative man, the artist. 100%.
Right on.
Where from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep, it's either reading, writing, playing the guitar, talking about things, and that's about all. That's really honestly all I do.
That's beautiful, man. So, what did your bandmates think after all these years? Now you have a best-selling book, HarperCollins. You're a big literary guy. What are they thinking? What was the thing when you published this book and kind of went on this lineage? What'd they say?
I mean, they were like, again, like best friends. They were like ecstatic. I mean, it's like I wrote, I think, 8 books while riding shotgun.
Yeah.
In the tour van, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where the drummer would be driving and Chad would be in the back reading or whatever, and I would be in the passenger seat, like hammering away at the keyboard, right? So, I mean, they've seen me like writing books and songs for years, and I think that they were all just like, holy cow, I do think that all 3 of us had a slight like, not sadness, but something that's sort of like, oh man, I wish, this was happening for all 3 of us.
Yeah.
We toured the country like crazy, and holy cow, have the 3 of us been through like the artistic together. And so there is just a dollop of, like, man, I wish this was all happening for all of us. But you know what? It's okay. Everything's great. Like they saw me working on this forever. Things are working out. It's wonderful. And who knows? Maybe success of Bird Box will result in more awareness for the High Strung. One thing we cannot do is stop now.
Yeah.
Because it's like, come on, with the book thing is amazing. You know, I gotta write us another album, or finish writing us another album. And then let's get, let's make it. And who knows, maybe some attention from the book will lead to that. And the theme song and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, to answer your question, they're obviously really happy for me.
Yeah.
But I think that we all want to make sure that it doesn't mean that because that's going well, the other side stops.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Right on. So, how did you come up with the idea for Bird Box?
You know, I'm just like constantly thinking of, I don't want to say horror ideas, but something similar to that. And I love it. How about this? I just don't think that I have anything yet to add to like the werewolf, vampire like universe, right? It's just, and I'm not gonna even say it's so overdone. There's some amazing things.
Yeah.
I just find myself looking constantly for a more, let's say, abstract monster.
Yeah.
And so at some point I love the concept of infinity, like personified, right?
Right.
The idea that there's an entity that you just cannot fathom, you can't encounter it, you cannot understand it, and if you were to encounter it, it would be the same as trying to fathom infinity. It would scramble your mind, or they say if man stood at the end of like space boundary, like you wouldn't be able to comprehend it, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of that being on your front porch, like standing outside.
Sure.
It's like you wake up, you go downstairs, you go to open the door, and oh, wait a minute, infinity's out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I liked that, and then I just randomly, not even sure exactly how or why, had an image in mind of a woman traveling down a river blindfolded and her kids blindfolded. They were fleeing from something.
Yeah.
And I started to write that. I started with, the original draft started with Mallory and the kids right on the river, and they're going. It was kind of silly, and the original draft, they weren't blindfolded yet, because I didn't really understand what I was doing yet, you know?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm like, I'm having them go, and I'm like, where are they going? Josh, where are they fleeing? And then I was like, oh man, they're fleeing infinity. And that was kind of my like aha moment with Bird Box, I guess.
Right on.
But it happens pretty early. Like a couple sessions, so let's say 3 sessions into writing it, I was like, oh, I know what's going on here. And the rough drafts from there was just an explosion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. At any point during the creative writing process, did you blindfold yourself and type?
There are times where I walked around the apartment, eyes closed and all that, and more, thank you. And possibly more, no, yes, I think I did actually, but not to the extent that I kind of wish I had, which was, I should have walked around the block, I was dating a girl at the time, she could have been near me, you know what I mean, to make sure I wasn't like, unsafe. I kind of wish I would have done that. I didn't do that. I can do that now, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I did have in that room with me were 5 finches who I never put in their cage. So these birds were like flying back and forth in this big sort of like loft, well, it used to be like a ballroom that I was like renting as an apartment pretty much.
Yeah.
And so these birds would be just flying back and forth the whole time while I was writing, and I mean, that was outstanding.
Wow, that's cool,
As
man.
you can imagine, that was really cool, yeah.
That's intense. That's cool. So, the journey to getting a book published, especially with HarperCollins, has to be a long trek. How did this happen?
The story of how I met them is almost ridiculous. It's a testament to stick-to-itiveness, but it's also a testament to came in, anybody who succeeds probably has a little luck involved. Because I just figured, I don't know if you know this, I've written about 20 novels now.
Yeah.
And I would write on Facebook, I finished another book today, I finished a rough draft,
Yeah.
I'm so excited. And this one friend of mine from high school called okay. And he's like, I think I know a good manager for you. We sent the book to him, and now that fella is my manager. And between the two of them and me, it was sent to an agent. So this team was all sort of assembled and then shopped to all the publishing houses. The book was shopped to the publishing houses. So it really did begin with this friend from high school calling me because he had read all these books.
Yeah.
And so that looks like, everyone's like, oh man, that's the luckiest thing. Well, yeah, yes, that is lucky. At the same time, the reason he called is because I was just non-stop writing. So I do believe in like some sort of like theory of momentum, where you may not, end up with the exact thing you're going for, but you stay in motion. There's some ripple effect where something is you're going to end up somewhere with it.
Absolutely, without a doubt. So my wife Carrie read this book before me, and then when I read it and we were done, she said, I have a feeling that the force in this book that we never saw could be benign, could actually be positive. And I said, you have to be out of your mind. There's no way that it was anything other than something sinister. So I want to ask you, what do you think about that whole scenario?
Oh man, I love that. Okay. What's your wife's name?
Carrie.
Yeah, Carrie. It's funny because while I was writing it, there were moments where I was like, wait a minute, I'm not convinced that these creatures mean any harm.
Yeah.
I was like, it's possible that they're just, what's the word? Almost like clumsily observing what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't want to say disinterested, but I can almost imagine these entities that are simply observing the wreckage that they're causing. And to me, that is a really awesome idea. But it wouldn't explain certain things. Like, for example, if they were aware of what they were doing, why would you enter the house? Why would you, you know what I mean? Why would you keep it up?
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of uncaring, disinterest, unfeeling, or flat-out malice involved. There has to be.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you would, you'd be like, oh, we're causing a lot of harm here, let's stop. Okay. First of all, that's assuming that entities think anything like us, which of course they don't.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, because I think Tom mentions in the book, I don't think they mean to do what they do, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think about that all the time. I'm like, is Tom right? I'm not sure, Maybe he was, and maybe Carrie's right too. To me, that's a possibility. But I think that if I just read the book and walked away from it, I would be like, yeah, that's a possibility, but I think something malicious is afoot.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. There was too many things that stacked up to malicious, but it's an interesting theory to think that, hey, maybe it was like the valise in Pulp Fiction. You really are opening it up to get blinded by goodness,
Yeah.
But let me kind of paint a picture, a Rockwellian picture for you real quick. You just got picked up to get this to be a movie. Opening night, you sit down. Do you think there's going to be any better feeling than to see a really good representation of this book on screen?
No, I don't. That to me, people say it's beyond my wildest dreams. I think that right there would be my wildest dream. To sit down and, as you said, to see a really good representation. Oh, you kidding? Like that would, as a horror fan, and to know, there's something almost like mafia-ish or clubbish about the horror fan, where if a movie, like let's say The Conjuring, The Conjuring has been welcomed into the group. The majority of us agree The Conjuring is a good one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so now The Conjuring will forever. There'll be the 30-year anniversary of The Conjuring. It'll be on the cover of Fangoria magazine. It'll be talked about, like we're talking about it right now, in conversations about a horror movie.
Yeah.
It has been welcomed. It has been, what's that word? It's a made man.
Yeah.
And that thing, because there's a lot of horror movies that you're like, oh man, right? I mean, come on, it's just like any quote-unquote genre, there's a lot you have to kind of sift through to find those gems. The gems are worth all the sifting. I mean, every horror fan will agree with that. So, man, to sit down in theater, and if I saw, like, Bird Box, the movie has the potential to be welcomed into that horror, like, fraternity, oh, man, that would be it right there, yeah.
Yeah, that would be very cool. I keep thinking about, I don't know if you read the collection of short stories by Joe Hill called 20th Century Ghosts.
I read the story, That's New Horror.
Yeah, I kept thinking about that when you were describing that. What a great story that is. I just kept thinking about that.
I know, what a freaky one, right?
My God, it was totally mind-blowing. You get to the end, you're like, holy shit, just run, dude.
So, yeah, just run, get out of there.
Yeah, it's a bad place, man. You smell bacon and see those dudes, you turn around and get your ass out right now. So, without a doubt. I got about 5 more questions here for you, and I'm going to ask you this, and this is not going to be an easy question, but it's something to think about. If you had to pick music or writing right now, and you had to, what would you pick?
Okay, like I absolutely have to pick.
Yeah.
Like that's the game, right? I absolutely have to pick. It's no fun to say, it's no fun to say both or either, neither, because that's not the game. The game is you have to pick.
Yeah, one or the other.
Then I absolutely would take writing, because that was from the start. That's what got me into music. Like I told you about the poems and all that, and that is interesting because I guess if I pick music, I'd still be writing, right?
Yeah.
But if I chose writing, I could still, sort of hedge that fence and write poems or something more lyrical, song-ish. If I chose music and turn it back on books, oh no, yeah. If I had to choose, it would be writing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right on.
Novels.
So let's get into a little bit of hero talk real quick here. If you could meet anyone, alive or not, who would it be, and what would you want to talk to them about?
Well, man, I have a few. I mean, obviously, and I feel like you know that this one's coming. I would love to sit down with Stephen King and talk to him about, hey, man, how did you feel in those early days when you realized that you were becoming like a trusted, staple killer of like the horror genre? Like how satisfying was that? How much pressure did that put on your next book?
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were being over-edited in the early days? Did you feel like you were loose as a goose? Did you feel like you weren't edited enough? I would ask him a lot of questions about what it was like before he was, or as he was becoming a quote-unquote brand name. Because it's just, that moment must have been so bizarre, so surreal, so profound for him, that I wonder. I mean, even if you're the kind of guy that's like, oh, I knew I was going to be a switch tough all along. Well, okay. But when it actually happens, that has to do something to you, or for you, or to you, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's one person. For sure, I want to talk to him a lot about that moment in time. But I also would love to, the whole, like, you can sit down at dinner with one person. I would love to sit down at dinner at Agatha Christie's house and just be like, hey, Agatha, would you mind just telling us a story? And then right away, oh, well, yes, and then we would all be like blown away, a paragraph in. We'd all be like, oh, fuck, that's the best story I've ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Holy shit, there she goes again.
I love her. And I love, there's some other guys like Hitchcock, Woody Allen, Bob Pollard from Guided by Voices, who I have met and hung out with.
Right on.
I would love to talk to like those people about, they're known, they're almost like chastised for being so prolific. So is Stephen King.
Yeah.
And I'd love to talk to like Woody Allen about like, okay, man, I've read your interviews, ear for about 60 years now. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
And that kind of, I would love to talk to Hitchcock about. I know there was a very workmanship thing about all the guys we're talking about. Like, well, this is, I go to work, this is what I do. And then, just like your dad, Josh, your father, has worked as an accountant for 60 years. I made a movie every year for 60 years. There's always like a workmanship thing about the prolific artist.
Yeah.
But there has to also be, that sort of eternal flame of inspiration going on also.
Yeah, without a
And
doubt.
I would love to see that flicker in Hitchcock's eyes. I would love to I'd like to hear what he acknowledge that it's not all just like being a businessman. Like, you're an artist and you're a consistent, really consistent artist. Like, I would love to talk about that with those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this. What's the greatest thing about being a musician?
I think, I used to think that it was making an album, the idea of, you are documenting where you're at, emotionally, and, you can argue, technically, how good you are, that kind of thing, but more, emotionally. And, bands in, the 60s, they put out, 2 albums a year, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays, it seems like a band puts out an album, every 2 years. And one of the problems that happens is that, the Beatles and the Who and all that, we were able to watch them grow, right?
Yeah.
Because they were documenting this growth. Whereas a band like the Strokes put on an album, 2 years go by, and then there's got to be this incredible pressure. So then their next album sounds like their first album.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
So I used to think that it was a matter of, documenting yourself is the best. And not in a that sounds like narcissistic or something, but not in that way. It's an exciting thing to do to document your own growth and to see it in other bands. Now, though, there's just no question that playing your song live to any amount of people in any city is just about the most rewarding thing you can do. It's so great, man.
Yeah.
When you're standing up on stage with your friends and you actually nail it, you can feel it. Oh, it's right on point, and Chad's playing great, and I'm singing well, and that whole thing. Oh, so now my answer to that is the live show.
Yeah. It seems to me that you get to live on both the lit side of Earth and the dark side of Earth, because you get to witness people taking extreme pleasure in your creativity by being on stage, and then you get to hear about people being pleased by something that you probably will rarely ever see, which is people reading your books and getting that glow. What is that like?
I still don't even really know, the book came out 6 months ago, I still don't really know how to respond with, I get messages every day, on email and Facebook and all that from people who have read the book and that sort of thing, and I kind of struggle with how to really, articulate to them how much that means to me. You come off on it oh, thank you, yeah, thank you. And you're thinking inside, this is the greatest thing ever. And so, it is unreal. There's been, there's some reviews online where people don't like it too, but the good have far outweighed the bad so far. It's interesting also, by the way, to have this happening in this era versus the 80s.
Yeah.
Because not only do you see everyone's opinion online, but if you wanted to, you're a click away from engaging with any of those people.
Yeah. True.
And sometimes it's tempting when someone writes an incredible review or something on Amazon, you kind of want to be wow, hey, Bob, thank you. And then if someone writes one, see, that's a philosophical question. What do you do if somebody writes a review and it's not necessarily bad, but they just got something wrong?
Yeah.
There's one that says, there's this one, a review on Amazon that was his influences are showing, and then it lists the books. Well, the rough draft of Bird Box was written before that book they're talking about came out. I agree with him that my influences are showing, but it wasn't that book.
Right.
So how do you, Well, you do. You're a click away from saying that.
Right.
And it used to be like you're not engaged with like a negative, review,
Yeah.
You can see because, but that philosophy is more like from the 90s when engaging meant like writing the magazine a letter.
Yeah.
What do you do now
Yeah.
in 2014 when you're a click away from, actually, sure.
Yeah, true. I mean, you're a moment away from a digital hug or a digital middle finger. I mean, one way or another, you can do it quick if you want to.
Yeah, and there are guys, girls who are like, I wouldn't say famous for it, but known to engage.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, hey, no, and then others who don't say a word no matter what. And so far, I've been that in the latter camp, and I'm not convinced I want to stay there.
Right. Sure. Sure. Time will tell. Josh, I got one more question here for you, and this may be the easiest or the hardest one, but I want you to describe to me, who are you in the length of a tweet? 144 characters. Who are you?
Man.
You can go over it a little bit. Yeah, I just thought about that. That little Anthony in Twilight Zone.
Going off in my mind. Whatever I am, I'm definitely an optimist who is in love with the imagination in all its forms, and that explains that's what ties together the rock and roll with horror stories, with silly cartoons, with crazy absurd movies, those kind of things. Like, I've been asked before, I know I'm well over the tweet limit now, but I've been asked before, how do you reconcile these, like, scary novels with these somewhat, like, bright pop songs,
Yeah, sure.
And the way I see it is, like, it really is coming from the same place. Like the kind of guy that would be like, hey, let's dance to this song, might be the kind of guy that's like, ooh, turn the lights on, you gotta watch this scene, man, this is scary as hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's all like the same, it's coming from the same, almost like arrested development, I would, if I had to do that tweet, I'd say something like, I'm a, optimistic clown and in love with the imagination.
That's beautiful, man. Hey, Josh, man, you are a creative force. It's been a huge pleasure to get the chance to interview you and to just hear it firsthand. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And, it's funny because you wrote, you're like, hey, can you want to do this interview or talk in the near future? And I'm like, yeah. And then you're like, how much tomorrow? I'm like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. And so I'm really, really excited that you wrote and that we did it, like, right away. I love that kind of way of doing things.
Right on.
And, thank you for having me. That was sweet.
You got a bright future ahead of you. Love your music, love your books, man. I look forward to all of them. They're going to come out from here on out. So thank you very much again.
Oh, man. Okay. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to go rewrite with a little more time on my stuff. Thank you.
Right on, man. Hey, have a good day and take it easy.
Okay, you too.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to a famous interview with Joe Dimino segment, where we give you a bit of insight into the creative forces that are making audiences imagine and crowds contend. And thanks to Josh Malerman for his time, stories, and candid insights. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino on the iTunes Store. And until next time, enjoy the world of creativity, my friends.